Hello everyone, and welcome back to Altrole's Class Breakdown series. I'm Bill, admin and instructor for Altrole, and today we're going to continue our Class Breakdown series and give a general overview of all the classes in D&D 5th edition to help you find the one that you want to play. Today, let's examine the Rogue class, sleuthing specialists who use their varied expertise to resolve problems through cunning rather than strength. The Rogue is a beginner-friendly class that focuses on resourcefulness and versatility, with a wide array of bonuses that make it easier to do a little bit of everything. Their expertise in shadowy sleuthing tends to come from living shady lives as cutthroats and thieves, but some rogues get their knowledge working as specialized tradesmen like locksmiths or investigators if they prefer to live life outside of a jail cell. As adventurers, a rogue can be a great addition to an adventuring party with the ability to focus on stealthily eliminating targets, getting the party into or out of locked areas, or spotting and disarming dungeon traps. When it comes to their role in the party, the rogue is mainly a damage dealer, meaning they're the ones to target down tougher enemies with big chunks of damage, while other party members focus on tanking and healing. Now, the rogue focuses on quick movements and precise strikes, emphasizing dexterity for their combat prowess. Because of this, they work equally well at range as they do in melee, and can swap between these types of weapons on the fly. While not the most durable class to run in melee, the rogue's defense comes from their maneuverability and speed, gaining abilities that allow them to weave between enemies on the battlefield, dodging attacks more effectively than others. So with all of this in mind, the rogue works best as a precise damage dealer who moves to the most advantageous place in combat before striking for maximum damage potential. To help summarize the rogue and clarify its role, let's go through a quick pros and cons list that I've organized into 3 main points for each. Starting with the pros, the first is that the rogue has great damage. The rogue gains many abilities in its base class as well as subclasses that allow them to deal more damage per attack so long as they think before they strike. These abilities give the rogue one of the highest potential damage outputs of all the classes, and is a favorite for min-maxers looking for the highest damage numbers possible. The second main pro of the rogue is that they are very stealthy. The rogue's ability to slink into the shadows is unparalleled among the classes in D&D. This mastery over the ability to hide from others also makes them very adept at spotting potential threats trying to hide from them, preventing many would-be ambushers with higher level base class and subclass abilities. The third main pro of the rogue is that they have great skill diversity. Rogues gain a ton of abilities that buff up their skill usage, allowing them to remain moderately good at most skill checks while also being able to specialize in a select few with expertise. This skill flexibility can be used in any number of roleplay encounters, rivaling bards for how well they can specialize into certain skills. So with these pros in mind, we can see that the rogue is a very nimble damage dealer that can move in and out of stealth to surprise unaware enemies with ease. However, there are also some negatives to the class that we'll need to discuss, the first of which being that the rogue is fragile. Relying on light armor and only having a D8 as their hit dice, the rogue is in a delicate spot when it comes to taking damage. Much like the monk class, rogues need to rely on outmaneuvering or dodging enemy attacks with their mobility and ability usage, as they can only take a couple of hits before being knocked unconscious. The second main negative of the rogue class is that they're a bad healer. No matter what level they are or what subclass they take, the rogue gains no innate healing abilities as a class and does not work well as the main healer for the party. While they can carry a healer's kit to help stabilize downed party members, definitely don't choose the rogue if you want to heal and support the party. The last main negative of the rogue class is that they are limited with magic. the rogue gains one subclass that allows them to cast spells, which we'll discuss in greater detail later. While this does turn them into a 1/3 caster, these spells are meant to accent the rogue's innate abilities rather than replace them. With this subclass option, magic is simply one more tool available to the rogue, and they will still need to rely on their dexterity, skills, and mobility in the majority of use cases. With the overview laid out and the pros and cons analyzed, let's review the unique class abilities that the rogue earns as they level up. Starting at level 1, the rogue gains Expertise, the Sneak Attack ability, and Thieves' Cant. Expertise lets the rogue choose 2 abilities they are proficient in and double their proficiency bonus anytime they roll an ability check using those proficiencies. At level 6, the rogue can choose 2 more skills to gain this benefit. Sneak Attack lets the rogue deal extra damage to an enemy if they have advantage on the attack roll, or if the enemy is within 5 feet of an ally. This damage starts at 1d6 and increases at higher levels. Thieves' Cant gives the rogue a secretive language that only others who speak Thieves' Cant understand, to communicate with through dialect, jargon, and code. At level 2, the rogue gains Cunning Action, which allows them to use the dash, disengage, or hide actions as a bonus action. At level 3, the rogue chooses a Roguish archetype. Roguish archetypes, aka subclasses, allow the rogue to choose an archetype that they emulate with their abilities. The rogue gains new archetype abilities at levels 9, 13, and 17. At level 4, the rogue gains their first ability score improvement. Ability score improvements add +2 to 1 ability score or +1 to 2 ability scores, up to the soft cap of 20. Rogues gain 5 ability score increases as they level up, and if the DM is using the optional feats rule, you can forego an ability score improvement to take a feat instead. At level 5, the rogue gains the Uncanny Dodge ability, which lets them use their reaction to halve an attack's damage if the rogue can see the attacker. At level 6, the rogue gains the Expertise feature, which lets the rogue choose 2 abilities they are proficient in and double their proficiency bonus anytime they roll an ability check using those proficiencies. At level 7, the rogue gains the Evasion ability, which states when they make a dexterity saving throw to take half damage from a spell or effect, they instead take no damage if they succeed on the saving throw and only half damage if they fail. At level 11, the rogue gains the Reliable Talent ability that states when rolling ability checks, which the rogue is proficient with, D20 rolls of a 9 or lower can be treated as a 10. At level 14, the rogue gains Blind Sense, which lets the rogue use their hearing to sense any hidden or invisible creatures within 10 feet. At level 15, the rogue gains the Slippery Mind ability, which grants proficiency with wisdom saving throws. At level 18, the rogue gains the Elusive ability, which states no attack rolls against the rogue can have advantage so long as the rogue is not incapacitated. Finally, at level 20, the rogue gains the Stroke of Luck ability, which lets the rogue turn one attack miss into a hit, or turn one failed ability check into a 20 once per short or long rest. With the base abilities established, we can see that the rogue gains a lot of useful damage and evasion skills to keep them alive and killing in combat, while also gaining a ton of useful skill abilities to get through roleplay encounters with ease. Next up, let's look at the archetypes rogues can choose at level 3. There are 9 archetypes available at level 3. Now I'm going to go through them in alphabetical order, but if you want to skip ahead to a subclass you want to know more about, you can use the timestamps in the description to skip ahead to the one you're interested in. The Arcane Trickster enhances their sneaking abilities through the use of illusion and enchantment, making magical mischief wherever they go. When taking this subclass, the Arcane Trickster gains spellcasting and Mage Hand Legerdemain. The Arcane Trickster gains limited spellcasting, choosing from the wizard spell list for their cantrips and leveled spells. Their spellcasting modifier is their intelligence modifier, and they start with 2 first-level spell slots and 3 known spells at level 3. Mage Hand Legerdemain states that when the Arcane Trickster casts Mage Hand, they get additional tasks for the Spectral Hand, such as planting a held object into a container or on another creature, retrieving an object in a container or worn by another creature, or picking locks and disarming traps from range. Further levels in this subclass grant disadvantage to enemy saving throws if they don't see the Arcane Trickster when casting a spell that compels a saving throw, the ability to distract creatures with Mage Hand, which grants advantage to attack rolls against them, and eventually can steal spells from enemy spellcasters once per long rest, negating their effects for the Trickster and knowing how to cast it for the next 8 hours. The Arcane Trickster is the caster subclass of the Rogue that I mentioned earlier, and while not overly powerful, it does contain a bunch of useful abilities that could really benefit the Rogue as well as the adventuring party. If you want to creatively use spells to accent thievery and other roguish activities, the Arcane Trickster is a good subclass to choose. The Assassin focuses on how to effectively kill and get away, working as hired killers, bounty hunters, or even religious inquisitors to use stealth and poison to deadly effect. When taking this subclass, the Assassin gains proficiency with the Poisoners and Disguise kits, as well as the Assassinate ability. Assassinate gives the Assassin advantage on attacks against any enemy that has yet to take their turn in combat, and attacks against surprised enemies are automatically critical hits. Later levels in this subclass grant the ability to spend 7 days and 25 gold pieces to create a near-perfect false identity, the ability to mimic a person's speech, writing, and behavior, and eventually causes attacks against surprised enemies to force a Constitution saving throw, doubling the damage of the attack if the target fails the save. While the base rogue abilities already make them a deadly force, the Assassin improves this aspect, while also giving them some unique abilities to be used creatively during roleplay. With an innate ability to consistently proc sneak attack damage and improve their damage at higher levels, the Assassin has enough going on with them that they would be a fun class to try out for someone wanting to play a more infiltration or damage-focused rogue. The Inquisitive Rogue roots out the things others would rather keep concealed, reading not only the details of a room, but the hidden intricacies of a person's body language to read their intentions. When taking this subclass, the Inquisitive Rogue gains the Ear for Deceit, Eye for Detail, and Insightful Fighting abilities. Ear for Deceit states that if the rogue rolls an insight check to determine if a creature is lying, treat a roll of 7 or lower as an 8. Eye for Detail lets the rogue use their bonus action to make a perception check to spot hidden enemies, or make an investigation check to look for clues. Insightful Fighting lets the rogue make a bonus action contested insight check against a target's deception. If the rogue succeeds, they can use sneak attack against the target even if they don't have advantage on the attack roll for up to 1 minute, or until the rogue uses this feature again on a different target. Further levels in this subclass grant advantage on perception or investigation checks if the rogue uses no more than half their movement, the ability to know when illusions or shape changers are nearby trying to obscure their true form, and eventually grants an extra 3d6 damage against targets who are affected by Insightful Fighting. The Inquisitive Rogue is an interesting subclass, but really middle of the road in terms of options. While it is the best subclass for rogues focused on perception and insight, the subclass doesn't offer many options beyond making those checks, though insightful fighting is still very useful in combat. Overall, if you want to play a more detective-inspired rogue that focuses on spotting things that others might miss, the Inquisitive rogue would be a great subclass choice. The Mastermind knows that a well-placed word is deadlier than any knife or poison, and seeks favors and secrets to lead lives of intrigue. When taking this subclass, the Mastermind gains the Master of Intrigue and Master of Tactics abilities. Master of Intrigue grants the Mastermind proficiency with the Disguise Kit, Forgery Kit, and 1 gaming set, as well as granting 2 languages. It also allows the Mastermind to mimic speech patterns and accents of a creature that they hear speak for 1 minute, letting them pass as a native speaker of a particular land. Master of Tactics allows the Mastermind to use the help action as a bonus action. On top of that, the Mastermind's help actions can grant advantage against enemies within 30 feet of them, rather than the traditional 5-foot range requirement. Further levels in this subclass grant the ability to analyze a creature's characteristics for a minute, the ability to redirect attacks meant for the rogue to creatures the rogue is using as cover, and eventually the ability to resist telepathy, conjure up false memories and images to trick mind readers, and magical efforts to detect lies will always see truth from the rogue's words. The Mastermind is a roleplay-heavy class, with most of its abilities not really being helpful within combat encounters. With that in mind, that doesn't mean it's bad in combat-heavy games, just that most of the unique abilities that will be used will be the same base class abilities that all other rogues normally get. All in all, the Mastermind is a good choice for roleplay campaigns where getting away with lies and half-truths will be far more prevalent and important than how they do in combat. Phantom rogues walk the edge between the living and the dead, using a mystical connection to those who've passed to gain information that may be important to their benefactors. When taking this subclass, the Phantom rogue gains the Whispers of the Dead and Wails from the Grave abilities. Whispers of the Dead grants the rogue proficiency with 1 skill or tool they lack anytime they finish a short or long rest. Wails from the Grave states that when the rogue deals sneak attack damage to a creature, they can immediately target a secondary creature within 30 feet of the first creature and roll half their total sneak attack dice, rounded up, to deal necrotic damage to that second creature. This ability can be used a number of times equal to the rogue's proficiency bonus and recharges after a long rest. Further levels in this subclass grant the ability to snag the souls of those who die near the rogue and turn them into trinkets that grant a number of buffs, the ability to turn into a ghostly form that can fly and hover for up to 10 minutes, and eventually gains a buff to Wails from the Grave, as well as 1 free soul trinket when finishing a long rest and not having any. The Phantom is a slow-burning subclass that becomes very powerful at higher levels, but may feel a bit underwhelming compared to other subclasses at lower levels. The subclass really doesn't get going until they gain tokens of the Departed at level 9 to snag the souls, and gain a number of uses for them. But overall, it's a fun and unique subclass with abilities that work in many different types of situations. The Scout, also known as the Poor Man's Ranger, is at home in the wilderness, moving in stealth to act as eyes and ears to protect or ambush others. When taking this subclass, the Scout gains proficiency in nature and survival, doubles their proficiency bonus for these skill checks, and the Skirmisher ability. Skirmisher states that when an enemy ends their turn within 5 feet of the Scout can immediately use their reaction to move up to half their speed away from the enemy without provoking opportunity attacks. Further levels in this subclass increase the Scout's movement speed by 10 feet, grant advantage to initiative rolls, grant advantage to allied attacks against the enemy the Scout targets in the first turn of combat, and eventually grants the Scout the ability to make a bonus action attack anytime they take the attack action, potentially proccing sneak attack so long as the target hasn't already been affected by sneak attack that turn. The Scout excels as a ranged option for the Rogue, utilizing better initiative to act first and increased mobility to evade enemies while peppering them with attacks. If you want to play a Ranger-style character that doesn't have to deal with all the weirdness that is spellcasting, then the Scout Rogue is a great choice for you. While most rogues infiltrate with traditional tools like lockpicks or daggers, the Soulknife Rogue infiltrates with their mind, using psionic powers to conduct their business. When taking this subclass, the Soulknife gains the Psionic Power and Psychic Blades abilities. Psionic Power grants the rogue a number of psionic dice equal to twice the rogue's proficiency bonus. These dice fuel supernatural abilities, such as adding the dice to an ability check to make it succeed, or establishing telepathic communication with others. One dice can be regenerated by using a bonus action once per long rest, otherwise, all spent dice are regained upon finishing a long rest. Psychic Blades lets the rogue summon blades of psychic energy to attack with, acting as simple finesse weapons with the thrown property. These have a thrown range of 60 feet, deal 1d6 psychic damage plus modifiers, and vanish immediately after hitting or missing the target. The rogue can also attack with a second psionic blade in the offhand using a bonus action, but this second attack only deals 1d4 psychic damage. Further levels in this subclass grant additional psychic blade abilities that use psionic energy dice to add to attack rolls or teleport where the blades land, the ability to become invisible for up to an hour, and eventually the ability to stun targets for a minute who are hit with sneak attack from a psionic blade attack. The Soulknife Rogue is a good all-around choice for rogue subclasses, offering a wide pool of psychic abilities and bonuses that are applicable in an even wider variety of situations. The sheer versatility of places where psionic energy dice can be expended, and the fact that they almost always grant some immediate bonus or ability, makes the Soulknife a very popular and good subclass to choose for rogue characters. The Swashbuckler Rogue is a combat-focused subclass, dancing between enemies with deadly precision, then darting away from tougher opponents that survive the initial tango. When taking this subclass, the Swashbuckler gains the Fancy Footwork and Rakish Audacity abilities. Fancy Footwork states that if the Swashbuckler makes an attack on an enemy, that enemy cannot take opportunity attacks against the rogue for the rest of the rogue's turn. Rakish Audacity adds the rogue's charisma modifier to initiative rolls, as well as giving the rogue the ability to use sneak attack against an enemy within 5 feet, so long as no other creatures are within 5 feet and they don't have disadvantage on the attack. Further levels in this subclass let the Swashbuckler charm non-hostile creatures and impose penalties to hostile creatures that try to target anyone other than the Swashbuckler, gain the ability to give themselves advantage on their next acrobatics or athletics check as a bonus action, and eventually allows them to re-roll a missed attack roll with advantage once per short or long rest. The Swashbuckler is a melee-focused subclass that makes the rogue a reliable source of damage through sneak attack buffs. Making sneak attack easier to hit and granting more abilities to dodge damage are nice, but the bonuses to charisma help the rogue excel in roleplay situations as well, making this subclass a great choice for rogues who want a more damage-focused combat playstyle, but can still hold up as the face of the party in social situations. Plus, who wouldn't want to play as a charismatic pirate duelist? The Thief is, much like the name suggests, an expert at getting into or out of locked places they shouldn't be in. While a traditional subclass option, there's a good reason that many stick with tradition. When taking this subclass, the Thief gains the ability to use their bonus action to make sleight of hand checks, disarm traps, or use objects, gain the ability to climb without using extra movement, and are able to increase their long jump distance by a number of feet equal to their dexterity modifier. Later levels in this subclass grant advantage on stealth checks if only half their movement is used, grant the ability to ignore all class, race, and level requirements on the use of magic items, and eventually gain the ability to take 2 turns during the first round of combat. While the later levels of this subclass seem openly overpowered, the usefulness of early abilities to use objects as a bonus action can provide a ton of great flexibility within the action economy of combat to keep the rogue fighting. However, those later level upgrades are still insane. Being able to take 2 turns in combat offers immense damage potential. The Thief is a classic but dependable subclass option for any rogue character. With all the class and subclass abilities explained, let's now look at how to build a rogue character if you want to try one for yourself. With rogues being versatile, we can build our rogue to be just the way we want them to, based on our own preferences. For this example, I'm going to build a level 1 rogue that focuses on ranged attacks, acting as an archer-based assassin type who strikes from a distance before disappearing into the shadows. For ability scores, the rogue's highest ability score should be Dexterity, to maximize attacks with finesse weapons and the bonus to our armor class with light armor. Our second highest ability score should be either Charisma or Constitution. Charisma is a good choice for rogues who want to focus more on roleplay to boost up deception and persuasion, whereas Constitution would buff up our health for combat. The rest of the ability scores can be spread out as you see fit based on what you have available. Health is up next, and to determine the rogue's starting hit points, you simply take 8 and then add your Constitution modifier to it. After health is equipment, and we have some fun options to choose from that will help cement what type of rogue we want to build. For our ranged rogue example, I'm going to choose a rapier, a good one-handed finesse weapon that I can use as a backup if enemies rush me, a short bow and 20 arrows, which will be my main ranged option for early levels, a burglar's pack, which gives me a ton of useful adventuring equipment for entering areas that might otherwise be unreachable, and leather armor, 2 daggers, and thieves' tools. The leather armor will set our armor class to be 11 plus our dexterity modifier. The 2 daggers can work as bonus backup weapons alongside the rapier for dual wielding, and the thieves' tools are a must-have for unlocking doors, jail cells, handcuffs, or trap mechanisms. With equipment done and dusted, let's take a look at the level 1 abilities a rogue player should note down. Now at level 1, we will have Expertise, Sneak Attack, and Thieves' Cant. For Expertise, we just need to choose 2 skills that we're already proficient in to double our proficiency bonus for. Good choices for this skill are commonly things like Perception, Persuasion, or Investigation. For Sneak Attack, we will need to note down the damage die of our Sneak Attack, which is 1d6 at level 1. Remember to upgrade this as you level up. We should also note down that this requires either having advantage on the attack roll or having an ally within 5 feet of the enemy we're attacking to use Sneak Attack. Lastly, Thieves' Cant is easy because we can just add this to our other proficiencies and languages box on our character sheet and just call it there. But with all of our ability scores, equipment, and abilities laid out, we have a level 1 rogue ready to go. And that is everything you need to know about the rogue class in D&D. A versatile class that packs a punch for both roleplay and combat encounters, and can come up with a solution for about any problem the party runs into. The rogue is a great choice for players who don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of spellcasting, but still want to remain useful both in and out of combat. Other than the stereotypical edgy rogue characters I see every now and again, I think that rogues are truly an underrated class that have way more usefulness to an adventuring party than people realize. But what do you all think? Is the rogue a great damage dealer with bonuses to skills for roleplay? Or are they too much trouble to specialize into being useful? Let me know in the comments below, or join us over on the Altrole Discord, which is linked in the description, to discuss it with the community. While you're there, feel free to say hi and check out our live courses that we run every week for free that cover any and everything you could possibly need to know to play D&D. If you want to help support the server and this channel, you can also check out our Ko-fi page in the description. We'll also be hosting another poll to vote on which class you all want to see broken down next in the Discord. So head over there before the poll closes this Sunday. Now, our last poll determined that the next class breakdown is going to be on the Wizard class, so make sure to bring your spell books for next week's video. But that is everything I had for all of you. Thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate all of your patience in waiting for me to get this video out. Life has just been very hectic recently, and I just really appreciate it. But thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see all of you next time.